So how is this helping with that, with people who may have PTSD, different traumas? What's the science behind that?
Right on. So, and because I personally, my PTSD manifests in the form of dissociation, essentially, what our technology is doing is inducing a dissociative state. And so my initial reaction, like I said before, I knew whatever was happening was very effective, but I had no idea what to make of it. And the reality is, now that I actually work with one of the inventors, he was recently explaining to me, we didn't realize how powerful this technology was. And so specifically when you're talking about PTSD, it's really important to start slow, but to not dismiss the experience like I almost did. My first experience was, and I think that this really speaks to, how we mirror the psychedelic experience as well, because both substance-free or substance-full, the importance of set and setting in your experience is going to dictate whether this is a positive or negative neuroplastic experience, right? Because with PTSD or with trauma, it is essentially, inducing that neuroplasticity, but often, it's ingraining very negative beliefs, negative patterns. This is what happens when people are having flashbacks. You're going back into those deeply ingrained grooves and those connections that have been made, not only, so often inappropriately, and that's why, you'll have a traumatic response to perhaps flickering light, or, loud noises, especially for those who've been in service. But, in my experience, again, these improper connections manifested in an autoimmune response. So using this technology specifically, it's really important. And this is why I've focused one of my target populations for our feasibility studies to be using not only veterans, but specifically senior veterans, because I want to prove the efficacy on the most sensitive populations, within this demographic, because there is so much potential. So let's start, I myself being, a really a problem patient, but a complicated case, right? Like so often we who seemingly, need perhaps the most help are dismissed because it's too much, or we don't know what to do with you, we don't have the resources, whatever. So my whole perspective is, let's take the most sensitive populations and start there and then work our way backwards. So for specifically veterans, one of the main things that we have to be sensitive about is, our technology is using stroboscopic stimulation, that's solid and flickering white light. So that very well may be specifically traumatic to some people. And that really just speaks to, again, like the importance of this being a completely individualized experience. You may not even know the subconscious trauma that you have. And so no matter who you are, what population, we are always, starting at the slowest basic level, working our way up gradually in response to how you, the user, are reporting your experience. So to answer your question, using this as a tool for PTSD, I was, after I left treatment, I had no control over my dissociation. All of a sudden, once I experienced this technology, I had this container where I understood that I could willingly put myself into this dissociative state. It was gonna happen. And then I could retrain my nervous system response. I can retrain and be conscious because of the frequencies, right, that this technology is bringing me to, because of the nature of the meditative state, of dampening our, default mode network, which is the ego, where this mind chatter resides, that, you hear people in this ethereal way being able to let go of when they get on their pillow and they reach meditation. But again, this technology is just inducing that effortlessly. And all of a sudden, I, had agency over something that medically I was told, really, like, you're not going to have control over this without medication, right? And so for myself and my specific dissociation, that has been, probably the most impactful opportunity that because it is such an effective dissociative state, because that's the brilliancy of technology. It really can just be super fine-tuned. This was the only controlled environment that I had, encountered to be able to use it in this way. And even if we're working with those who do have, specific triggers around, say, explosive, solid and flickering white light, you can still use just the halogen without the combination of the flickering LEDs. And this in and of itself is still an opportunity to induce that parasympathetic state, that state of calm, relaxation, and just respite, which is ultimately, at the end of the day, what PTSD requires, is a disruption of these really deeply ingrained patterns. And that's where you can have an opportunity to then rewrite a new response. So, the majority of, especially veterans right now, are on, SSRIs, they're on pain medications. There's all sorts of medical contraindications that exclude them from the psychedelic experience, which has, MAPS has shown such incredible validation as a breakthrough technology. But again, what about the population that has all of these contraindicating medical conditions? This is where I, am seeking to bring our technology in and serve them.